I request protocol.
Okay, joining us back for our post-speech analysis then, the most boring, unimaginative, predictable speech. I made a couple of points while this was going on, but I was the one which actually zapped me completely, Maruf, was when he described Burhan Wani as the young leader of a peaceful movement, armed only, and I like to take pictures of Burhan Wani to show what he's actually armed with. So that he says Burhan Wani is the young leader of a peaceful movement armed only with a conviction or belief in his own ideas of peace. I mean, that for me really took the cake. Maruf, your quick analysis, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Arnab. It stuck out to me amongst a string of denials and lies. This was the most laughable. The other thing is that what is an article of fate for Pakistanis is the UN Security Council resolution. But whether you look at the resolution of August 48 or you look at the resolution of 49, one of them is that there is under the UN Charter clause 47, which means they were non-binding. Even if they are binding for India, which he says it is a solemn promise made by India's leaders, I think Nawaz Sharif to start with should at least read the UN resolution. And the problem is whether it's Nawaz Sharif or virtually anybody in Pakistan, they start chest thumping on UN resolution without even reading it. So if Pakistan is willing to implement its part, we are willing. Now, next are the two quick points, Two quick points. One is that about nuclear disarmament. He says Pakistan is a responsible country and it is only doing what is the barest minimum that it should do for its defense. Why is it then the world's largest proliferator of nuclear shady black technology and the largest increment in nuclear arsenal that Pakistan's doing? Finally, most importantly, Arnab, one point in which he talks about Pakistan being a victim of terror, and he also talks about sponsored from across their borders and supported and armed, etc.
Yeah, Maruf, let's keep it quick. We've got a lot of panelists in. 1 second. I saw 10 self-goals by Nawaz Sharif there. Abhishek is outside the UNGA. I'll be going across to him in some time. Abhishek, this story is developing fast outside the UNGA. Also, Natasha is outside the Waldorf Astoria where the meeting between the Chinese and Pakistani premiers happened. Quickly from you, I saw multiple self-goals out there describing Burhan Wani as a symbol of intifada. Means that the Pakistan Prime Minister has directly recognized a terrorist of the Hizbul Mujahideen as a martyr before the international community. This is actually proof that you can now formally recognize them as a terrorist state. I don't know whether this was a self-goal or he got carried away or whether the Hizbul Mujahideen wrote a speech, but I think that's a big self-goal. Abhishek and Natasha, let's get a quick response from you on that one. Abhishek, to you first, yeah. You also went to the briefing of the Indian minister. Yes, what are you gathering?
Well, Arnab, it was almost... Yes, you see, so this was almost like an oxymoron of a speech where he wants peace with India but is not ready to restrain his terrorists, in fact, going on to call them martyrs. So it's clear Pakistan's bluff has to be called with this speech. The fact that John Kerry, US Secretary of State, when he met him yesterday, clearly told Pakistan to put a cap on their nuclear program. And this is the same Pakistan which is not ready even to put a no first use clause with India. So it's clear that this was a speech written somewhere else, clearly in Rawalpindi, and to not yield on any position. In fact, last year, Arnab, Nawaz Sharif had come up with a 4-point program for peace, to which India had responded by saying that first terror has to stop emanating from the Pakistani territory. Absolutely no change on that.
Okay, Abhishek, we'll keep it going fast. Please stay on, Abhishek and Natasha. Let's go across to our panelists. Now to GD Bakshi. Let's go to Seshadri Chari before that. Seshadri Chari, self-goal number 2. Self-goal number 2, by not recognizing Burhan Wani as a terrorist, he has ensured that the world sees Islamabad as a country that officially sees elements of terror as leaders. To call a terrorist a leader at the UNGA is a bit too much. Yes, please.
Yeah. The most important element of this whole thing is that here is a Prime Minister who talks about peace with India and who talks about the humanitarian considerations, and he is going to submit proof of what India is doing in Jammu and Kashmir, but he forgets that more than what he has, we have got tons of proofs of what Pakistan is doing in Balochistan. He is talking about 500,000 soldiers.
Yeah.
What about Balochistan? Will all his paper stand the tempest of what we are going to give to the United Nations as of Balochistan is concerned?
Yeah.
This speech, this speech is actually made out after the US has
this is
virtually arm twisted Pakistan into saying what he has to say.
This is
And part of the speech is dedicated to the military chief sitting in Islamabad or probably sitting behind him. Who must have written the speech and told him, if you don't mention Kashmir, don't come back to Islamabad.
Don't come back. Exactly. See, I'll tell you, look at the body language here, Seshadri Chari. He looks tired, exhausted, harassed,
absolutely
unconvinced with what he's saying. Look at his body language out there. He's not able to even raise his voice. It's almost as if he wants to walk away from the stage. He's so embarrassed about being the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Self-goal number 3 and 4, quickly, GD Bakshi, before I come to you. Self-goal number 3, he says, India has posed unacceptable conditions for talks. We posed only one condition, no talks with terror. I don't know what's unacceptable about that. Self-goal number 4, he speaks at length about Kashmir, but not once in the context of the only relevant context of Pakistan pushing terror in the valley. 5th, he speaks about Srinagar to Sopore. Not once, GD Bakshi, in the context of the fact that it is from these areas that 14,733 Kashmiri people have been killed since 1988 by terrorists. So factually, I don't know who wrote this speech. It seems to be written by some illiterate in Rawalpindi.
No, educated.
I cannot believe a Prime Minister delivered this.
Just remind you.
Yeah, GD Bakshi.
Are we asking me, please?
Yeah, GD Bakshi.
Thank you. Arnab, what I am trying to state is that in 2010, the United Nations Security Council had taken Jammu and Kashmir off the list of international disputes. They said they were sick and tired of the Pakistani K-rant.
Yeah.
And they had said this dispute is to be resolved bilaterally. Now the fact is, he has been sticking to his K-rank very deftly. He has been trying to sidestep the core issue of Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Not a word on the Uri attack, not a word on this thing. He's just trying to derail the agenda and trying to put the world's attention, somehow drag it back. In the most ineffectual, in the most bleating manner.
Marshal Ahluwalia, Marshal Ahluwalia and General Madanjit Singh. Marshal Ahluwalia and if I may, 1 second. Former Vice Admiral Madanjit Singh. I know you both of you want to come in. I'm just taking quick rounds. Self-goal number 6. Marshal Ahluwalia was where he says, my country has been the principal. He talks about terror sponsored, funded from abroad. Not one word on how Pakistan has become the biggest importer of terror.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, Arnab, what I think has hit me hard is a very hypocritical statement, and if I correctly monitored it, that bilateral nuclear test ban treaty. Now, does he mean that he wants to do an understanding with India, although we all know very much that they are continuing to develop nuclear weapons, and they have more nuclear weapons today than India certainly, but even more than Israel and North Korea.
I mean,
so this is another red herring that they're throwing at the world to show that they want peace and they want to continue with the terrorism activity and more importantly with the nuclear development program, the weapons development program. So I think this needs to be taken care of.
He tried the blackmail.
Because this is another red herring to the international
this is a nuclear
community.
Blackmail. Basically, it's a nuclear blackmail that he is trying to attempt.
It's another fraud that they are putting out today, and I think this is the biggest fraud that they're putting out, apart from the repetition of all that you've been saying earlier.
No, you see, there was an element of blackmail out there when he said, and I don't remember the words, I think he said, Vice Admiral Madanjit Singh can come in, where he said, don't ignore the rising tension in our region, you ignore it at your peril, or something like that, right?
And he mentioned about arms race.
So that's the blackmail. That's exactly the blackmail that he's talking about.
You know what? I don't call it blackmail. I call it green mail. And the reason I call it green mail is because it's blackmail for the green currency called dollars. Yes, please. Vice Admiral, coming to you after that, sir.
Okay. I just want to make a quick point. He did make that statement. I don't know how many people will actually believe what he said, but he talked about Pakistan being a responsible nuclear weapon power state.
He said that.
But if you recall the statement made by the Pakistani defense minister just 2 days ago, that we will not hesitate to use tactical nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, I have yet to hear a more immature and uncalled for statement. And how can they claim to be a responsible nuclear power?
Yeah. Take that point. I'm going across to in my studio. I've got Lieutenant General Sudhir Sharma with me, joining us our panel, and of course Ravi Arora of the Indian Military Review. Yes, General Arora.
You know, when I was listening through the speech, I looked at the self-goal quite differently, and that was, I don't want to belittle the sacrifices made at Uri by our soldiers, but imagine if this Uri attack had not happened, and after 73 days of intermittent curfew, this speech were taking place. Halfway through, he did not mention anything, and then when he started off with Kashmir, with killings and blindings, and talked of India's draconian laws and self-determination and things like that, it would have had an entirely different effect. After Uri, this speech has not had any effect at all.
Yes.
And I'm sure worldwide, after having seen the kind of terror attack perpetrated in India, everybody would have taken this speech as one of those old hat things.
Yeah, I agree. General Arora, he did not mention once the murder of 18 Indian soldiers by his proxies in Uri. General Sudhir Mishra, Uri happened on September 18th. This has come 3 days later. There could have been one reference to it in his speech.
No,
because the world will hunt him down now for his silence. If he's talking about tensions in the region, the world will hunt down Nawaz Sharif for his silence now. Yes,
Absolutely.
please.
No, I think it was a very unfair speech. In fact, I think it was the wrong Sharif speaking.
Absolutely.
It was Al Sharif's speech.
Did he look unconvinced to you? Did he look
Totally.
tired?
I think it was a speech that was like somebody drafted the speech and reading it out for himself. And to me, it looked like a speech of an enemy state premier. It looked like a speech by a person at which we are at war with. So I feel that after Uri and after this speech, literally I feel there needs to be a paradigm shift in our looking at Pakistan per se. We must stop looking at it as a country which is a neighbor. It should be looked at as an enemy state, and therefore we must now look at it, and all the people in the country must build a consensus against this country, and we stop looking at this peace and Aman ki Achas.
And I'd say even to the Pakistan apologists, there were some Pakistan apologists in our country also.
To them also,
who kept saying, oh, poor Burhan Wani, son of a headmaster, poor Burhan Wani. There were some Pakistan apologists who built that narrative today, Maruf. Today, those Pakistan apologists must hear what Nawaz Sharif said. He sounds exactly the same.
Absolutely.
He sounds exactly the same. Yes, Maruf. Yes, Maruf.
I think General Sharma makes a very valid point. It's a line I've taken for 20 years, that when you go to some of these debates, discussions, seminars, and whatever, track 2 initiatives, track 1, track 2, whatever, you get a lot of these guys say our Pakistani friends and brothers from across the border. And I remember making this point 20 years ago at the IIC. I said they are neither friends nor brothers, they are our enemies. And it seemed to have stunned a lot of grey-haired eminences. But the point at issue is that if you don't get your appreciation, or in military terms it's called appreciation, but you don't get your understanding of what you are engaging with correctly, then you'll obviously engage with them as though you are waiting for your biryani diplomacy to get revived.
General Sharma.
Now, unless... So the key point to understand is that he went on and on about doing blackmail with the world to give all sorts... You see, he's either assuming that the whole lot of world leaders sitting at the UN are illiterate, ill-informed, they don't read papers, they don't get feedback from their foreign offices. Or he is, as you have rightly brought out, that he was in a trance and saying something which has been drummed into him.
He was in a trance. He's been given a speech. He knows everything. I mean, to talk about deserving an entry into the NSG. Maruf, I mean, this is a country,
that is
Mr.
the point,
Chari. Mr. Chari,
that is the point. In fact, Arnab, I wanted to make that
there's
point.
Enough
Actually,
literature about their nuclear blackmail and the black market they
this
run.
explains. Arnab, this explains his meeting before the speech. Your reporter has reported about his meeting with the Chinese counterpart.
Yeah.
And this part of the speech has been dictated by the Chinese counterpart that look, we cannot keep India out of the NSG for long. Someday or the other we will have to do it.
No, but this.
But the bargain with India, will
Chari,
be that you will have to make the right kind of speech.
No. But how can you make this speech?
The question is whether the world agrees with it, or whether India has to agree with all this is a different issue.
But then he's arguing with
what is
himself.
important is, it is a dictated speech, and the most important self-goal that I would like to point out is what he mentioned about Afghanistan. He says he has been advising Afghanistan about dialogue between Kabul and Afghan Taliban. Whereas just 48 hours before, the Afghan president came and told India that after what Pakistan has done to you and to turn to us, please boycott SARC.
No. Can I add to that? The biggest self-goal, in fact, I missed this out. And you can tell me whether I'm correct on this one, General Arora, General Sharma. Look at who he spoke about. He spoke about global terrorism, General Arora. He spoke about the Daesh. He spoke about the ISIS. He did not speak once about the Taliban. He did not speak once about the Jaish-e-Mohammed. He did not speak once about the Hizbul Mujahideen or the Lashkar-e-Toiba, of which are all terrorist startups from Pakistani soil.
Absolutely.
Right. Not one word on that. Do you think this is going to go unnoticed, General Sharma?
See, what he tried to do was he tried to put Afghanistan on the front stage and tried to divert the attention once again, going back to say
it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Of terrorism. Not going to work at all. So everybody has heard this speech today, especially those people who are apologists for Pakistan, who understand that this country is never going to support us, and they must not be treated.
Well, a bored, tired political parrot cannot be expected to say anything else. Yes, please, General Arora.
What was laughable was he mentioning that Pakistan is a victim of terrorism, including terrorism perpetrated from abroad.
From outside.
Meaning India, I think.
He didn't have the guts to mention India.
He said one of the reasons for terrorism, and one of the reasons for terrorism, he said, was not giving this right of self-determination. How far-fetched is that? I do not know. He did mention Taliban as saying that the only way Afghanistan can be peaceful and solution can be found is by the Afghans talking to the Taliban and Pakistan facilitating it. In that respect, he acknowledged
General, fantastic point. General, fantastic point out there. In fact, that's the great thing about having so much experience around the table to discuss this. I found it laughable. When he said Pakistan has pioneered the quote-unquote largest anti-terror campaign in the world, he said. Right? People will ask, is this a campaign responsible for the fact that the Jaish-e-Mohammed in the last 9 months has orchestrated 2 attacks in Peshawar and in Uri? Is this the campaign, Maruf, responsible for Salahuddin getting open top bus rallies on the streets of Pakistan? Or for the fact that the Jamaat-ud-Dawa is called a charitable organization in Pakistan? I mean, it's a crying joke out here. This man has today, broken his own records of lies. General Ahluwalia wants to come in, and then Maruf, I'm coming right to you. Yes, General. Air Marshal Ahluwalia. Please.
Thank you. Arnab, my take on this is that Pakistan, a state which sponsors terrorism, has a strategic reason to do this. And I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan has confirmed that there are strategic reasons for them to continue with this rant against India, and they'll continue to do so in the future, because the only other 2 reasons for state-sponsored terrorism are ideological or political. It's not political, it is not ideological, it is not religious ideology either. So it is the strategic part of it, and he is confirming that in the future, in the long run, they will continue on the same path to ensure that they get the best.
He's going now. I just got an update.
Yes.
He's going now. After this, he's going to go for a bilateral with the Iran President Hassan Rouhani. Then he goes for a bilateral with Ban Ki-moon, and he was going to give a list of Indian brutalities. You know what a list of those Indian brutalities are, Maruf? That includes the killing of Hizbul terrorist Burhan Wani. He is actually going to do this. I don't know whether he's got any self-goals left. He is taking a picture of Burhan Wani in his meeting with the UN chief and saying this is Indian brutality. I mean, I really don't know, has he lost it completely? Because I've got an update, if he does this now, how is the UN chief going to respond, Maruf, to this situation? He'd say either he's psychotic, schizoid, or a mix of both.
See, Arnab, you've got to understand that as far as Nawaz Sharif, he has done a Faustian bargain. The Faustian bargain is he'll do anything to stay in power. And he is obviously not doing what an honorable man's conscience will do, but he is scared to hell that if he doesn't do all this, his flight will not be able to land back in Pakistan, and he'll probably again have to go in Jeddah and set up business there all over again, or maybe London. You know, these are two places where Pakistani kicked out dictators go to, or kicked out politicians go to. The second point to understand is that, you know, most of his speech actually, I could have given you my points on what he would have said.
I can believe you.
This was so predictable. This is so predictable. Everything is so predictable about them. But I think, you know, what is most interesting is that Pakistan painting itself as the nice guy in the region and in contradiction to what Mr. Modi has said at G20 and ASEAN, that it is a, you know, one which is spreading terror. Now, Zarb-e-Azab, objective Pakistani analysts, people who watch Pakistan, have called it Zarbe Bakwas, because they have unsettled more than 1.9 million people from the region. They warned the Taliban that we are going to bomb that area, so go away. Let us just allow us our helicopters and others to bomb the rock faces there. And finally, and most importantly, let me tell you that Pakistan's, that narrative that terror comes to them is the one that hits their citizens, not the terror that their strategic assets expound, has become very clear once again. So quite clearly, I wouldn't take all this seriously. My one suggestion to the Foreign Office and Ms. Swaraj is that please give a PowerPoint presentation in the UN and not a read out and a speech that you give a PowerPoint presentation, give pictures like Colin Powell had given before the start of the Second Gulf War, and show to the world what these guys do, where they come from, what are their terror factories, what is their agenda. Then you will make an impact. If Ms. Swaraj also goes and takes this dais out there and reads out another 15-minute speech, hopefully she wouldn't do the guffaw that the former Foreign Minister Krishna did, and she will obviously stay to the text.
Maruf, in conclusion, Ravi Arora and anyone who likes to come in, especially Mr. Chari. Mr. Chari, I think that a copy of this speech must be given to the Pakistan apologists in India. And they must be asked, General Sudhir Sharma, that please note the similarity between some of yours describing Burhan Wani as the poor child of a headmaster, slightly misguided, hemmed in by circumstances. Listen to this language which some people unfortunately use in India, Indians in India, and the words of Nawaz Sharif. What do you think?
Arnab, as Maruf pointed out, this was not the original Nawaz Sharif speaking. It is not his speech. He is no longer free to make his own speech.
He never was.
Probably his speech would have been slightly better. This speech has been written by the army headquarters. And the ISI writer who has done this speech must have told Nawaz Sharif that if you are not going to read this speech,
don't come back.
Even before the Baluchis take political asylum in India, you can try for political asylum in India.
I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. One feels sorry for the Pakistanis today. That you have a person, genuinely, I mean, look at this man. He looks unsure. How would any Pakistani be looking at this weak, unsure, underconfident, bored, tired, harassed looking man who almost contrasts this to Narendra Modi when he spoke? and when he spoke at the UNGA, and the force and conviction with which he spoke in Hindi at the UNGA, and contrast this to this person, bored, harassed, tired, reading out somebody's speech. Ravi Arora, that contrast is so striking that I feel sorry for the people of Pakistan that they produced a leader like this. You might as well send the ISI chief or the army chief to make the speech. This carried zero conviction. Ravi Arora, quick comment from you and then we'll close this.
The hall was only
1/3 full.
You're right. The hall was also half full today.
Yeah, nobody.
As was last time. But you remember last time when Narendra Modi spoke, it was a house full, jam-packed. But I think Sushma Swaraj must be laughing more than Arnab Goswami today, and she must be wondering whether I need to give this strong speech which I have made on the 26th or not, after all the guffaws that everybody has heard. She should be taking points from this panel as to how we are making fun of this speech, and just make fun of Nawaz Sharif. That should be enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure...
Arnab, there's a quick point. He was also asking for some dole. He said that we've got 3 million Afghan refugees.
I think he said that. Yeah, he said that. He said
But the funny, ironical point is, the Home Minister of Baluchistan, who is an army appointee person, has threatened the Afghan refugees that if you do not go away yourself, we will humiliate and throw all of you out. This is the speech made by the Home Minister of Baluchistan at the behest of the army.
Well,
and this is the kind of treatment they are giving to the Afghan refugees.
Yeah. A bored, this is what happens, General Sharma, when you have a bored, bankrupt and harassed man going to make a speech at the UNGA. Even by Pakistani standards, couldn't have been more pathetic.
This is the time where we should build a consensus.
This is the time for us to act.
And decide.
This is the time. Seshadri Chari, all eyes on the government. This is the time.
I wonder what transpired between Nawaz Sharif and the army chief.
Well, we'd like to know. We'd like to know. I thank you all for your excellent analysis, for sharing your experience, and for your tremendous insight on the Newshour this evening. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.